The room was dark, the air thick like smoke. Amora lay on the cold floor, blood trickling from her mouth. Above her, Kenichuku stood with a hammer still dripping. His eyes, those same eyes that once looked at her with love, now burned red with something evil. Amora tried to scream, but the only thing that came out was a faint, helpless whisper. Why? King, why? He smiled, and it wasn't human. If Amora had known that her mother's warnings were true, she would never have married Kenichuku. But love, they say, makes people blind. And for Amora, it made her deaf too. Their story had started like a dream. Kenichuku was handsome, wealthy, and carried himself with a quiet charm that made every woman's head turn. From the first day they met at the Owari Mall, it felt like destiny. He had bumped into her, apologized 1,000 times, and insisted on buying her new groceries. By the end of that evening, they were already exchanging sweet smiles and secret glances. Her friends had been jealous. Her mother had been suspicious. I know like that boy, Mama had said one evening, squinting at Kenichuku's photo. Something they hide for him eyes. Shine your eyes, Amora. Not all that glitters is gold. But Amora had laughed it off. How could someone so gentle, so perfect, be hiding anything dark? Their wedding was grand. The whole town came out to celebrate. Amora wore a flowing white gown, and Kenichuku looked like a prince beside her. Yet, as they exchanged vows, an old woman in the crowd screamed and fainted. The wedding photographer caught it on camera, her face twisted in terror, pointing at Kenichuku. Nobody talked about it again. The first few months of marriage were heaven. Gifts poured in, trips to Dubai and London, and romantic nights that felt like fairy tales. But slowly, things began to change. Kenichuku became restless at night. He would pace the corridors, muttering things in a language Amora didn't understand. Sometimes, she would wake up to find him standing over her, watching her sleep with empty, soulless eyes. At first, she thought it was stress. Then the voices started. At midnight, she would hear whispers from their walls, cries from the mirrors, laughter from the darkness. She told Kenichuku, but he only smiled and said she was imagining things. One night, she woke up to find herself tied to the bed. Candles surrounded her, and strange symbols were drawn all over their bedroom. Kenichuku stood in front of her, dressed in a black robe, chanting something terrifying. "Kenichuku," she screamed, struggling against the ropes. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. Instead, he brought out a dagger, its blade shaped like a serpent. That night, Amora realized the truth. She hadn't married a man. She had married a demon. Before Kenichuku met her, he had made a pact with something ancient, something wicked. To gain endless wealth, charm, and success, he had agreed to sacrifice the one thing he loved most. Amora, she was never a blessing in his life. She was a deal. Each time he kissed her, held her, whispered, "I love you," he was preparing her for the slaughter. The memories came flooding back. The strange man that visited them during their honeymoon who refused to step inside the hotel room, the random scratches she would wake up with, the black cat that followed her everywhere, even into the church. Signs she ignored. That night, as Kenichuku raised a dagger, something in Amora snapped. With strength she didn't know she had, she kicked him square in the stomach. He stumbled backward, knocking over a candle. Fire leapt up, and in the chaos, she wriggled free. Amora ran. She ran barefoot into the night, through the thick forest behind their estate. Branches tore at her skin. The cold bit into her bones. But she didn't stop. Behind her, she heard him, laughing, calling her name sweetly like it was all a game. "Amora, come back. You're mine. You will always be mine." Thunder roared across the sky. The ground seemed to tremble with each of his steps. Amora stumbled onto an old abandoned chapel. She burst inside, slamming the door behind her. The place was dark and broken, but it was a sanctuary. For now. Outside, Kenichuku circled like a predator. "You can't hide from me, Amora." She collapsed into a pew, shaking, sobbing, praying. For the first time in a long time, she prayed, and the wind answered. When Kenichuku burst into the chapel, the candle flames flickered wildly. He moved like something possessed, his body jerking unnaturally. His voice, when he spoke, was layered as if 10 voices were speaking at once. "You promise yourself to me, Amora. You are the price." Amora backed away, feeling the ancient cross behind her. She gripped it, lifted it high. "I am not yours," she said, her voice breaking, but her spirit fierce. Kenichuku laughed, a horrible sound. He lunged, and Amora did the only thing she could. She drove the sharp end of the wooden cross into his chest. The scream that tore from Kenichuku's mouth was inhuman. It shook the ground, shattered the windows, and filled the night with horror. His body convulsed, black smoke pouring from his mouth and nose. His skin blistered and peeled. And then he was gone. Only ashes remained where the man she once loved had stood. Amora never returned to that house. She moved far away to a small village where no one knew her name. But at night, when the wind howls and shadows creep along her window, she remembers. She remembers the love that almost killed her. She remembers the man she thought she married. And she whispers to herself, "Not every devil has horns. Some wear wedding rings." 3 months later, Amora thought it was over. She had moved to a quiet village in Anambra, changed her name to Ngozi, and avoided all contact with her past. She worked at a small clinic and lived in a one-room house beside the river. Every Sunday, she sat at the back of the church, prayed, and tried to forget the face of the man she once loved. But evil doesn't die that easily. One stormy night, as she locked her door and prepared to sleep, she heard it, a knock, soft, deliberate, almost playful. She froze. Nobody ever visited her. Not at that hour. Not in the middle of heavy rain. She waited. Maybe it was her imagination. The knock came again, louder, Ngozi. Her heart stopped. That voice. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. Ngozi, open the door. You think you've run far enough. She backed away slowly. Then the lights flickered. Her cross, the one she kept hanging beside her bed, fell and shattered, and the walls began to bleed. Panicked, Amora ran barefoot through the storm to the home of the only man everyone feared, Baba Idu, the mad seer of the hills. They said he spoke to the spirits. Some said he used to be one. She found him chanting in front of a fire, naked to the waist, his eyes white as chalk. "He's coming back," he said without looking at her. "Your husband never left." "He's dead," Amora cried. "I saw him burn." Baba Idu turned, his expression dark. "You didn't kill the demon. You only killed the shell. You married into a covenant, not a man. And the debt remains unpaid." He flung a calabash into the fire, and smoke burst into the air, forming the shape of Kenichuku's face, burning, screaming, laughing. "He's no longer alone," Baba Idu added. "Others are coming. They want you, and they want the child." Amora blinked. What child? Then it hit her. The dizziness, the nausea, the cravings. She thought it was stress. But no, she was pregnant with Kenichuku's child. The demons wanted the baby. It wasn't just a child. It was a vessel, a gateway for something ancient to come into the world. Baba Idu prepared a ritual to sever the spiritual link between Amora and the child, to protect them both. But as they began, the skies turned crimson. A whirlwind tore through the hills. The flames in Baba's hut exploded into black smoke. And then they came. 6 hooded figures, floating above the ground, eyes glowing like burning coals. Their skin cracked with dark symbols. One of them pulled off his hood. Kenichuku. But his face was wrong. Twisted, half-burnt, more demon than human. "You can't run, Amora," he hissed. "You belong to us. And so does the seed growing inside you." Baba Idu threw powder into the fire and chanted in a forgotten language. The earth trembled. The demon screamed, recoiling. A golden light surrounded Amora, but it was fading fast. Kenichuku charged. Amora screamed as Baba Idu leapt between them, a blade in hand. The blade met Kenichuku's chest, but he didn't bleed. Instead, dark tendrils shot out from the wound and wrapped around Baba's throat, lifting him into the air. "Run!" Baba choked. Amora fled into the storm, heart pounding, tears blinding her eyes. She didn't stop, not when the trees bent toward her, Not when shadows chased her, not even when she heard Baba Idu's final scream echo behind her. She collapsed at dawn near a sacred waterfall. Old carvings lined the rocks, symbols of the ancient gods. There, she was found by Ada Aura, an old priestess with blind eyes but clear vision. "You carry a cursed soul," Ada Aura whispered, "but you also carry a chance to end this evil." She took Amora into the shrine, deep underground. There, the priestess explained. Centuries ago, a dark demon named Zubali was banished by a bloodline of women born with a fire. Amora's family, the same blood Kenichuku needed to bring the demon back into the world. "You didn't just marry the devil, Amora," Ada Aura said. "You were born to destroy him." Under Ada Aura's guidance, Amora trained. She learned chants, symbols, and the language of spirits. Her body grew stronger. Her fear turned to rage. 9 months passed. The night of her labor came, and so did Kenichuku. The skies turned red again. Lightning danced across the hills. Demonic beasts crawled out of the rivers and forest. And in the shrine, Amora screamed in agony as the baby came. As the final push came, Kenichuku burst into the shrine, now fully transformed, his flesh gone, replaced by burning black stone. "Give me the child," he roared. Ada Aura stood to block him. He struck her down with a wave of his hand. But before he could reach the child, Amora rose, her eyes now glowing gold. Her voice, no longer hers, boomed through the chamber. "You took everything from me. Now take this." She raised her hands, and the symbols carved on the walls burst into light. The entire shrine began to shake. The fire spirits awakened, and Kenichuku screamed as flames surrounded him. Amora, holding her newborn son, whispered the final incantation. The binding of fire passed through her bloodline. Kenichuku exploded into ash, and the darkness was finally gone. Amora now lives quietly, somewhere no one knows. Her son, Chimreys, grows each day, unaware of the war fought over his life. But Amora watches the shadows, because evil never truly dies, and some devils wait patiently for the second coming. 13 years later, the night maze started on Chimreys' 13th birthday. He saw things he couldn't explain, blood on the moon, fire raining from the sky, and shadows that whispered his name. He would wake up screaming, sweat soaking his clothes, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Amora tried to hide the truth from him. She told him the dreams meant nothing, that he was normal. But Chimreys wasn't normal. He could hear voices no one else could. He could set dry leaves on fire with his breath when angry. And most frightening of all, he once touched a dying bird and it came back to life, with black eyes. Something was stirring inside him, something ancient. It was on a Thursday evening that he saw the man, a tall stranger dressed in black, standing across the riverbank, staring at him. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. But Chimreys felt his skin crawl. His heart pounded. And then the man smiled. It was his father's smile. And somehow he knew. That night, Chimreys demanded answers. "Who was my father?" he asked Amora. "And don't lie to me again." Amora's hands trembled. The room grew cold. "Your father," she whispered, tears filling her eyes, "was a demon in human skin. I destroyed him to protect you, but part of him lives in you." Chimreys froze. "So, what am I?" "You're my son," she said, "but you're also something the world is not ready for." 3 nights later, Chimreys woke up to find a glowing mark on his chest, a fiery spiral, pulsing with heat. It burned through his shirt but didn't scar his skin. And with it came the voices. They whispered his name, told him things no child should hear. "You are the key. The gate must open. Your mother lied." He ran outside into the night, heart pounding. The forest around their cottage bent unnaturally. The river rose as if answering a call. Trees cracked. The sky bled red. And then Kenichuku appeared. But this time, not as a man. He rose from the shadows, half ash, half fire. His voice, a low growl. "Hello, son." Chimreys' scream shook the village. Amora came running, face pale, clutching an ancient staff wrapped in red cloth. Ada Aura had left it behind before she died, for the day the devil returns. "Run! Raise!" she screamed. "You mustn't listen to him." But Kenichuku laughed, floating above them. "Is mine, Amora, flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. The fire in his veins belongs to me. Then take me." Amora shouted, raising the staff. She struck the ground, and a wave of white-hot fire erupted, throwing Kenichuku backward. But it cost her. The energy drained her body. She collapsed. "Mommy!" Chimeries cried, kneeling beside her. She touched his cheek, barely able to speak. "Don't let him win. You have light in you too. Fight, my son." Her hand dropped. Amora was gone. Kenichuku screamed, rising again, his form now monstrous, horns of fire, wings of smoke. "Now, there's no one to protect you." But Chimeries stood, tears in his eyes, rage in his blood, fire on his skin. "I'm not yours," he said. "I'll never be yours." And then it happened. The mark on his chest burst into flames. A circle of fire surrounded him. His voice deepened, not in fear, but in power. He chanted words he didn't know he knew, words from bloodlines long buried. The forest caught fire. The river boiled. The skies cracked. Kenichuku roared and lunged, but Chimeries raised his hands, and a wall of flame threw the demon back. The spirits of Amora and Eduora appeared behind him, whispering the final phrase, "Let the fire consume what was never born of light." And with one final scream, Chimeries unleashed the fire of the first mothers. Kenichuku disintegrated into ash forever, a new beginning. The village was gone. But Chimeries stood toward the edge of the ruins, the staff in one hand, his mother's pendant in the other. He walked away, barefoot, fire flickering behind him, because now he knew. He was born of light and darkness, but his fire would burn a path through both. And the devil would never claim him. Not all demons have horns. Some wear wedding rings.